Guys, greetings. This is Ali Hussein Kasim of Ali Talks Tech. This is episode 2 of season 2 of this series about our Pan-African tech story. Today I have with me Riyaz Bachani. Riyaz is a founder, CEO of an interesting tech infrastructure company called Angani. Riyaz, karibu to Ali Talks Tech.
Thanks, Ali.
In my previous episode, I was with a friend of mine called Peter Ndiangui. And Peter is all about commerce and e-commerce and fulfillment and stuff. Today we're going to talk about the stuff that without that stuff, there's no talking about what Peter is doing.
Yeah.
Infrastructure. And I'm not talking about roads and bridges. I'm talking about tech infrastructure.
Yeah.
So before we talk about Angani, who's Riyaz? Where do you come from? How did you start in this tech infrastructure business?
Yeah.
So tell us your story, Riyaz.
I think my story goes quite a long way back.
Okay. We have time.
I think, obviously my career was kind of, everyone would push you to become a doctor, that sort of thing.
It.
There's no engineer listed in the careers, right? But, my dad used to encourage me to, write a lot, and I used to write, and then he used to get those, stories, articles published in the newspapers,
Really?
So, so Sunday Nation, stuff like that. I was very young. It's like when I was in primary school. So, alhamdulillah, I had a really good opportunities to open doors, and that sort of, with that, I saved up some money. In high school, you don't get access to computers. So the first time I really sat with a computer is with those savings, because there's also a book published, of stories. So with
you
that,
published a book of your stories.
Yeah.
In primary school.
Yeah.
So you see, these conversations are interesting, Riyaz. I've known you for God knows how many years. I did not know about that. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yes.
But yeah, basically the royalties and stuff, right, helped me to buy my first computer after high school.
What year was that?
That was 97.
97.
Yeah, 1997. So once I got my first computer, then that was it. Like everything else was out of the window. It was
computers.
It was computers. There was nothing else. It was just that passion, that obsession with computers, playing, tinkering. High school I went to Bush.
Primary school in Mombasa. High school in But for those guys who don't know what Bush is these are the Alliance guys who keep on hearing on WhatsApp. All right, so Alliance to what?
MIT.
So you went to MIT.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but I think that gave the opportunity to just grow the passion for computers more, right? Because I was one of those hardcore guys, running black screens, Linux, all that stuff, right? So that was largely
DOS.
Me. Not DOS, like Unix, Linux. That's
so you didn't do the DOS thing.
No, I was anti-Windows. I'm still anti-Windows, anti-Microsoft. I was one of those guys, right?
Open source.
Open source all the way.
All the way.
But yeah, that I think opportunity, because they had a computing platform called Athena, and that's kind of everything. Like your computer in the cluster boots up, it automatically downloads software updates. Like everything is controlled centrally, right?
For downloads for whatever.
Yeah, so like virtual desktop, cloud. I mean, it was there even then. The technology is
when
the
talk
same.
about then, when is then? Which year is this? So let's step back a bit and talk about your time at MIT. How many years was that? 3, 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
4 years in MIT.
Yeah.
What is your experience in really arguably one of the, if not the, software engineering or computer engineering schools in the world? What was your experience then?
No, like I said, I think it was, being at home with, all the geeky stuff, all the nerdy stuff. So,
so geek heaven, basically.
Yeah, basically, you had lots of communities of like-minded people. We used to, so you get exposed to, computing, everything, at that point in quite a bit of depth, right? Because there's much more smarter people. There's much more,
I can just imagine.
Much more, there are guys who have gone and they've created their own products, they've created their own technologies.
Yes.
So you get exposed to all of that. And for me, mostly it was, going back to kind of my career and what I've done, it was being exposed to fast internet. It was being exposed, like I said, to the Unix environment, to systems, that sort of thing, right? So, so that was kind of where you get to see the foundation of what the internet is built on. Yeah, and then when you come back home, you see where the gaps are. You see what could be done better, right?
So fast forward to back home.
Yeah.
You're done with MIT, you're back home.
Yeah, so I was looking for a job and internship.
Members, my audience, home for Riyaz is Kenya.
Yeah, Mombasa. The heart will always be there. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I came. The one thing that I wanted to do was work somewhere where there was fast internet. So that at that time was the ISPs. So I went around, circulating CV, getting, first initially.
Physically.
Initially, I'd spent, an internship in Kenya. So that's the point where I was looking around, for internships during one of the breaks.
Yes.
And, I met Richard Bell, Mohammed Janabi at Swift.
Swift Global.
Yeah, I'd sent my CV to around, Africa Online. I got an interview, but they rejected me. I didn't have enough experience.
So, guys, this is what year?
This is 2000.
2000.
Yeah.
So, guys, at that time in Kenya, you wanted to work for one of the big internet service providers or ISPs. So there was Africa Online, there was MTN Business, there was Swift Global, there was Wananchi, but before.
Yeah, Wananchi came.
There was Wananchi.
Yeah, just around that time. Slightly.
So those were the companies to work for.
Yeah. So, so for me, I mean, I was just looking for a fast internet connection at that point. But I joined Swift Global. Richard Bell, Mohammed Janabi, they took me in. I was based in Mombasa, but then I helped, at that stage, moving, they were using this popular mail server software called MDemon. Everyone was using MDemon, right?
I don't know why that thing was called MDemon.
Any
idea?
Well, it was a daemon. It was like a service, a server, but daemon is demon, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I met a customer who still runs MDemon
today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I need to have that customer here to have that conversation.
So so it's basically to help. Just internship was more about helping, improve the systems with
so at that
my
time,
Linux
ISPs
knowledge.
were also running email servers.
Exactly.
It was like those two.
ISPs were like the tech companies,
Correct.
For a long time, like ISPs, you would consult them. In fact, even the ISP sales guys, the guys who come to connect your dial-up would be the guys that would help you, set up your email account, teach you how to browse, teach you Google. Like they were sort of at the forefront of technology, right?
I mean, I remember
because ERPs and stuff was not there. Software was not there at that time, right?
There. I remember David Kiania.
Yeah.
At Africa Online that time, setting me up with my first email when I used to work at Toyota Motor Corporation. Through Lonro Motors. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, and what has happened over time is that the ISPs, came up with this policy that we just provide the connection, right? And, the gateway, the border is your router. Whatever you do behind the router, the LAN and all that stuff, Shoriako. But going back to where we are now, the ISPs missed out on that big opportunity because, now everyone is going towards being a technology company, Safaricom, Liquid, even Angani is a technology company. Everyone wants to be a technology company where they participate in your software, in your digital transformation, in all these 100%. Things. But you see, now they're trying to claw back.
Yet they could have owned all that and completely closed it out. Well, that's a story for another
day. I mean, so that's an opportunity, I think, that everyone's trying to claw back now. Correct. But so ISPs became more and more on the infrastructure, on the plumbing side, right? And then OTT, whatever runs over that, the ERPs, everything else grew, other companies, for that. And I think it's similar to Africa Online, right?
Of course.
You guys had 3 Mice, you had Africa Online. And then over time, you start separating, those businesses.
So I think the analogy probably would be, you early days of plumbing, actual plumbing in the house. Now you have water in the house that you never used to have. Now you want a beautiful toilet that flushes. Next, you want a bathtub. You want a shower with hot water and so on and so forth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
so basically they just missed out on that.
The
that
guys
was the more serious value addition. To think about it, because pipes are just pipes.
Exactly. The guys who did the piping, they get forgotten
completely.
And it's the most essential part.
It is, but you get forgotten because it's done. I mean, I have water flowing.
Exactly.
So what do I care how the water came in anyway?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So your time at
now coming back at that time now, Swift Global was just starting KDN. So Richard and these guys called me, and basically we started KDN. There was Richard, David Owino, myself, and we had a small team.
So KDN, that's Kenya Data Network.
Kenya Data Network. So before, everyone used to have to go through Telkom Kenya.
Correct.
To get your links. So all your connectivity had to be done through them. And their copper infrastructure, I mean, you would have downtimes. It was not reliable. Basically, nothing could grow on that network, right? We used to have, I think it was countable ATMs. There was maybe 50 ATMs in the whole of the country.
I mean, talking about ATMs and my passion of fintech and thinking about those days. Forget about credit cards. If you had an ATM card,
exactly.
It said something about your position.
People
and
were
status.
not banked.
Yes,
people were not banked.
Just simply not banked.
Yeah.
Interesting. And to think that all only happened because of that back end work that you guys were doing.
It absolutely is. You needed reliable infrastructure, right? So we worked with companies at that time. Obviously, it's a new company, and there's Telkom Kenya and all the big banks are, were with Telkom Kenya. But, you're showing that value. I think the best thing, Richard's brilliant, but I think the best thing with how KDN was set up is it was set up as a wholesale carrier, right? So all the ISPs were riding on this one infrastructure, right? So on the technical side, we had to figure out how that works, but that has always been the challenge. We've always figured out how it works and built it. But the thing that I remember the most is Equity Bank, right? They signed on with KDN because they were running this system. I think at that point. Was that
the first bank that signed on to KDN?
It was one of the very first.
Very first.
Yeah, because it kind of came as a cascade, right? Within a 2-year span, there was just I think almost everyone. So I think Equity Bank and KCB were the stories I would remember the most. Equity Bank.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, because Equity Bank, every new branch that was coming up, I was there the weekend before.
They connected.
We were basically connecting, yeah. And that was, we set up a base station. We were doing it with, it was outsourced. So KDN also pioneered the outsourced model.
That's what is called foresight. And that's
I don't know if there was so much foresight. I think it was just, there was the need for infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
But from the banking perspective,
considering from a banking perspective, to just think that even at that time, connecting branches was not there.
It wasn't. I think
a centralized place where if I banked my money today in any branch, we seem to take things for granted today.
Yeah.
If I bank my money anywhere or through M-Pesa, it's instantly reflects on my bank account. It never used to be that.
No. Each branch had a server.
Yes.
Each branch had a server room. So even though you had the internet connection, it was only used for end of day synchronization, right? Every branch had a server. Every branch had a server room, UPS, everything, right? So, and then it all goes back centrally for end of day and end of day reconciliation and all that. And that's kind of where we've come from, right? But every branch, Karatina when it was opening up, Nyeri when it was opening up, the weekend before.
Were there weekend before.
We were there. Exactly. We had to activate the base station. We were collocating on Airtel masts. So we had to, because Airtel and Samir Group had a relationship at that point. Yeah.
When I do these conversations, I want to not make any assumptions about my viewers. Just tell us what collocation means so that everybody is clear.
So the mobile operators had all these masts.
Correct.
Right? There was no fiber then. KDN laid the first fiber in the region. So what the mobile operators were doing is they had these tall masts, and then between the masts they had microwave links, wireless links between the masts. So what we had negotiated with Airtel is that Airtel had this big, 2 MB pipe. Right?
Yes.
2 MB, and that was used for IT services. So we said
2 MB.
2 megabits, right? So we said you don't need this 2 megabits. For all your an E1 basically in telco terms. So give us, you take what you need. Like we're going to partition this link, right? With kind of our IP technology. So we're going to give you, 32 or 64 kbps, and you give us the rest for. We were leasing it basically.
I see.
So you give us the rest for KDN's interconnectivity business, right? So that was like the first KDN's national backbone,
that was
that
interesting.
1.8 Mbps or something. And
so
that's what...
You were riding on somebody else's...
Initially, that was the first backbone. So it was a good, reliable backbone because the mobile operators, their mast sites had everything. So that's where collocating means, using theirs instead of building your own.
Which is something that should actually be structured into policy in this country and across Africa. Everybody is digging
we have
their
so
own.
Much fiber in the ground.
Yeah. Okay.
But the good thing is, the market takes care of itself, right?
It does.
Like
eventually.
In Nairobi, it's still very easy to lay your own fiber because the distances are not that many. If you wanted to connect all the commercial buildings, you need something about 25-50 million shillings, and you can connect all the commercial buildings. Doesn't take that much.
Yeah, but the question is, which
But
is something that we've always asked, is why does everybody need to dig up their own
because
fiber?
of the commercial models, like people, the pricing models, the commercial models. You see, in the UK, they had local loop unbundling a very long time ago, right? BT and all these.
Yes.
It's because the government lays it, and then the government has a 20-year outlook, right? They're going to make their money over 20 years. So
basically,
it costs you cents to get into a home in the UK because the infrastructure was laid much earlier.
So basically, the government took the same outlook of laying digital infrastructure the way they used to build roads.
Exactly. Yeah.
So why are we not able to do that here?
Remember, what happened is the governments used to own the telcos, right? So the government used to own BT.
Yeah, but we also used to own the telco.
Here we used to own Telkom Kenya.
Yeah, but why did we not do it?
So Telkom Kenya had lots of infrastructure, but it was all copper. It was all, Ozang. So instead of that,
that's
fiber is the new
story around ICT infrastructure, policy and stuff.
Yeah.
We will have that conversation when I have a government official here, which I hope that I will.
So, but if you look at long distance, long distance is fairly well regulated because the distances are large. The amount of capital required is more, right?
Which is where the government came in with NOFB.
With NOFB, right? But the one that really worked is KPLC. KPLC kind of helped to change. Telkom changed, because it was reliable. Because people first need reliability. NOFB was not reliable. Telkom was not reliable. So with KPLC, people were actually able to build reliable infrastructure.
So you are telling me that what KPLC is unable to do with electricity, they are now able to do with technology?
Well, their fiber has been...
I find it a bit difficult to accept, but
So the fiber runs on the high voltage line.
Yes.
The national backbone.
Correct.
On the grid, right?
Yes.
So I think the grid has been fairly stable, apart from the monkey incidences. But so the grid has been stable, and that's where the fiber backbone runs on the grid.
Okay.
But if you were to tell me that KPLC has to take fiber, to distribution to the homes, that's going to be a challenge.
For them operating at that infrastructure level, without last mile is probably the best.
That works,
and they need to stay there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And now you have alternative backbones, the railways, the pipeline. So you have
things are really happening.
Fiber.
They're really happening in this space.
Yeah, you always need more fiber, more infrastructure,
redundancy,
right? Redundancy,
as we call it.
And extra capacity. Because like at KDN, there was this link that we had to Bruce House. Bruce House is where the exchange point was. And we could never find enough capacity. It was always growing, right? Because all the ISPs were connecting with KDN. And, they were all coming into Bruce House. And so we kept upgrading. We went from microwave, we went to laser, until in the end, it was just fiber was the only option, right? For that backbone, because that was the main traffic highway.
So let's talk about fiber.
Yeah.
And compare it to that 2 MB pipe that
we started with. Yeah.
That you started with at KDN with
Equity and everyone else.
With Equity and everyone else. And fast forward to today with fiber. And let's talk a bit about the difference in capacity and what that has been able to do for tech in this country.
Yeah, I think, and that kind of, also leads us to how the career progressed, right? Because from KDN, we went to Wananchi. And Wananchi is now broadband in the home, right?
Yes.
Zuku. So at KDN, we had one product. At least the base product was local loop. and we
And that
started
was mostly
with
B2B, business to business.
Exactly, a 64 kbps. We could connect you from here to here, right?
Yes.
Anywhere in Kenya, basically. We started with Nairobi, 5 base stations, and then added, because of Equity Bank, largely added all these towns.
Equity
right?
Bank determined your growth.
At that point, yeah, like I said,
which
the weekend before,
which brings me to the
activating.
foresight.
Yeah,
that was Equity then.
Yeah, I mean,
and seeing where they are today.
Yeah, technology was always a big part of that bank. Like, they needed that technology. They needed reliable connections.
Yeah, which brings me to, Swahili saying that goes, ukiona vinaelea, jua vimeundwa. So today we marvel at some of the stuff that Equity has been able to do.
Yeah.
But that infrastructure and that thinking was built almost 20 years ago.
It's in the foundation.
Yes,
it's in
absolutely.
It's in the culture.
And that's a story that needs to be told. That's a story that needs to be told from a tech perspective. So really, thank you, Riyaz, for bringing that issue up. Although, I'm always arguing with a friend of mine called Robert about why I feel that Equity is not meeting its potential. But looking back, I'm happy to slowly start changing my perspective, thinking about how this bank moved from literally nothing.
It was a startup then.
Completely to a monolith that today hovers around the Eastern and Central African region when it comes to financial services. And then now we are seeing how the CEO, Dr. James Mwangi, was forward-thinking even from then, understanding the importance of technology.
Super interesting story. And you see it, right? You see it in Equitel, you see it in their financial services, like what Jack was doing.
Correct.
I mean, it was ahead of its time, right?
Great.
But it's that's the stuff that I think technology has always been part of their DNA.
So you've still not answered my question. 2 Mbps
going to
fiber. So what sort of capacity are we now looking with each fiber?
So you see, I think it goes to like I said, at KDN we were selling 64 kbps. For about 10,000, 12,000 shillings
a month,
right? A month. So you get a 64 kbps. Then the only time we went lower is for ATMs. Right?
Ladies and gentlemen, remember that's not Mbps, that's kbps.
Yeah. So it's basically 1 Mbps is like 1,000 kbps. So we were selling 64, like it was a small stream. But it could download MP3s. But you can't streaming all that came later. The internet needed. So
today we take for granted the fact that I can log onto Zoom. I can watch Netflix. I can log onto another video conferencing like Google Meet or Teams. Without thinking.
No, you don't think about it, and I think one of the first people that came up with this concept that used to talk quite a bit about it after KDN, I went to Rwanda. I spent some time in Rwanda. There's a company called Terracom that was building networks. There's a guy, Greg Weiler. So Greg was the one who had this philosophy that, whatever you get in the US with Comcast, why can't you get that in Africa? At that point, Comcast was doing, they were an old sort of cable media company, and then they got into the internet business. Before Verizon, before AT&T, Comcast got in as a cable network provider.
And today, Comcast mostly is a media company.
It is a media company. They still have a big broadband base.
That's true.
But over time,
but we know it as a media company. We seem to have forgotten that they were pioneers.
Its foundation is media. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which is, when we talk about Zuku, we'll come back to that point because, Zuku started, and had a very big media focus.
Correct.
But the product was internet.
So,
right.
So, Riyaz, I know we.
Let me answer you. I'm coming to answering the 2 MB question.
Correct.
So, coming now back, Richard called me. He's like, "Why are you wasting your time? We need to build a proper broadband network, right?"
Yes.
So he'd gone to LSE, and then he'd met, Mark Schneider and a bunch of investors, and basically they were looking to buy Africa Online at that point.
Yes.
And build proper broadband, because at that point, what Africa Online had done is they'd invested in iBurst.
Correct.
Giving people 128 kbps up to
that
512
was mind-boggling
kbps.
Then,
Yeah, exactly, right? But to homes now, right? Because so far all the ISPs had focused on the corporate sector.
On corporate.
Right? But the homes were not covered except for 3G at that point, right? So now you needed proper home connectivity. So the objective then was that 2 Mbps number. It was, how do you give people 2 Mbps at a reasonable fee? Because 2 Mbps at that point was real broadband. Remember, this was
Mbps.
2000.
So now we moved from kbps to Mbps.
To Mbps, right? At 2,000 shillings, or just about that price, right? Because that was the price that we felt people could afford. And now the problem that we had to solve technically is, how do you do that, right? So we looked at WiMAX. We went to India. We saw WiMAX in action. It just wasn't going to work with our trees, right?
Too many monkeys.
Had to, exactly. iBurst in that sense was really good, but it had a lower frequency, and that was what works well for iBurst.
Okay.
But for WiMAX, it really needs line of sight. So we knew at that point that wasn't the solution, right? But the solution was, there was cable TV, right? Even here, there was cable TV. There was CTN and Mitsumi, and there was these companies who were doing cable to the houses because they were delivering Indian channels and basically entertainment to limited areas, Parkland, South Sea, Mombasa. yeah So and going back to kind of university, because that's kind of when Roadrunner and Comcast were coming up. It's like your cable TV can run your internet, right?
Correct.
So that's kind of where Zuku started from. We knew that we rolled out a WiMAX service, but we knew that's not the answer. The answer is you have to get a cable to every home. You have to get fiber into every home. Right?
That is interesting.
And that now, went from how you can get your 2 MB at 2,000 shillings, that we had to figure out how that
was game changing then.
Exactly, because now it allowed everyone to get internet, right? But the way, people didn't want internet, right? So we had to find a way in.
Crazy, right? To think that at that time you were trying to...
Yeah. And so how did we get in? Yes. We got in, we had to dislodge the entertainment budget, right? That's where the pocket, so the entertainment budget was DSTV. And at that point there was GTV, if you remember.
Correct.
So it's basically entertainment TV. So the TV budget is what we had to dislodge. So we had to give people triple play, which included TV.
So that's how Zuku was founded.
Exactly, right?
Triple play, I still remember. So listeners and viewers, triple play from a telco and media perspective, then that meant having TV, internet, and telephony.
And voice, yeah.
And voice telephony.
Yeah.
Through one pipe. Paying how much?
2,000 shillings.
2,000 shillings.
Yeah.
That's how Zuku was born. I remember that.
So, that's where the fights with DSTV and kind of... Because DSTV had a monopoly and still has a monopoly on African, on content in Africa, right? And they've invested a lot in that content.
But they're still not getting the internet component. I wonder why.
Well, I mean, until Starlinks, it was hard to do internet on satellite. Because you see, you have one satellite, and that one satellite is serving an entire continent or half a continent. There's only so much bandwidth you can get, right?
I mean, that's really a story for another day.
I'll tell you about our big dish stories.
I'm being reminded that we are running out of time.
Sure.
So I want to now focus on Angani.
Sure.
We've seen your career from, writing books in primary school to serendipitously getting money to buy your first computer, to your time at MIT, to now, playing a big part in Kenya's internet infrastructure. Now, Angani, tell us about Angani and where you see the future when it comes to providing infrastructure to ensure that we have connectivity 24/7, 365.
Yeah, I think it stems still back to KDN days. At that point, KDN also had another product, which was our telehouse.
Yes.
This was a data center. It was the first kind of, big data center for collocation. And then KDN went on to build East Africa Data Center, which is currently the most, it's the hub, right, of everything. But that's the thing in around that time, there was also a gap in reliable hosting of local infrastructure, local businesses, right? If you wanted reliable hosting, you would have to go outside the country. There was no local hosting infrastructure. But with data centers like EADC coming up, that became a reality, right?
During my time at 3 Mice, we used to buy space from Rackspace.
Yeah, Rackspace, GoDaddy. These were some of the guys that you would host with because they were reliable, because they had like Telehouse, London Telehouse. All these were reliable data centers, and you wanted to be in those, right? Because no one had invested in reliable data centers here. The mobile operators had good data centers, but they were only for their own use, right? So it wasn't, collocation wasn't a big business at that point. Yeah, if you wanted to host your ERP or you wanted to host any application, like we said, in the banks, you go build a small server room, and you put every branch, and you put your server there. You put your application there. So that now started changing because obviously people we're now moving towards internet is becoming critical. Internet is not just an enabler for entertainment. Like and banking applications. Exactly. Banking applications, businesses are relying on this internet. So this internet has to be reliable. And so naturally the place, the application that you're also running has to be reliable, right? So
and available 24/7.
Exactly. So that's where investments in data centers like ADC and others, go a long way in terms of building that. And right now, we have that. We have the data centers coming up, right? But technology has also moved. Technology is very rapidly moving, right?
Correct.
And this is where old age catches up with you, right? You're now feeling that some of the new technology that's coming up, it's a little bit like typewriters and fax machines, right?
Correct.
There were people that got left behind with the fax machine, and then worse with email, right?
Yes.
So I think that's kind of where technology is going at this stage. Is you no longer need the physical data center and the physical servers. What you want to do is go to a web portal, get the server that you need off the web portal, and then go and install your applications on it. No capex spent, no, cabling, wiring, and all that tricky stuff, right? Everything, people want technology as a service now, right? You want to run an application, you'll first try and see if that application is available as a web service, right? If you want to run anything, HR system, warehousing system, you look for a SaaS product first, right?
Software as a service.
Software as a service, right? So that's kind of where the world is going.
Correct.
People want self-service, even banking, neobank, all that stuff.
100%.
You want self-service. You want to be able to download an app, get your account
without thinking,
without having to go and step in a bank or do extra work, right?
Yeah.
So that's what customers are demanding. Customers are used to that on-demand service.
Correct.
And they're used to that online space. So that's what's happening with technology, right? People want it to be easier, but people want access to it. They want access to it in an easier manner. So that's where cloud has grown. That's where Angani has grown. Is we're providing local infrastructure, hosted in East Africa. Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. Rwanda. So local infrastructure that's hosted locally. So the latency is good. You can access it easily, and you can also you can also use it based on what you need, right? It's in local data centers and all of that. So it's resident within Africa, right? For African content, for African applications, for African companies. So that's Angani's mission is basically to build Africa's cloud, right? Because the bigger companies are not going to come and do it. So it's only 2%.
Your big, hairy, audacious goal as Angani is to literally build Africa's cloud computing ecosystem. Where do you think the Amazons and the Microsoft Azures of this world play? And why do you think you can do it while they are building out all this infrastructure across Africa? So what's your value proposition?
Our value proposition is, Africa is not, just one country that
54
you come and plonk in, one data center and it's going to work. Granted, they're hyperscale. They're much bigger than we are. But we're meeting the requirements for local companies, right? We have local support. Right now, we charge in shillings.
They charge in dollars. So basically, what you're telling me is your strategy is vitu kwa ground ni different.
Africa's infrastructure needs to be affordable. Every country is different. You have to work, with providers, with people,
with local
in each country, with local entrepreneurs,
and that's
with
the
local
flexibility
businesses
that Angani has.
Exactly, right? And the beauty of it is from the time we started as an infrastructure company.
Correct.
We've grown to a technology company, right? And it's the same way Amazon and everyone else has started, They started with infrastructure. They realized that there's an opportunity in media because Netflix came to them and, they built infrastructure for Netflix. So the same way we've built, a video platform. We've built, we've got a voice platform. Like you can run your PBX on the cloud. You don't have to go and, install all those legacy PBXs in your office. So effectively today in your office, you just need Wi-Fi and everything else.
You don't even need to have an office with that virtual PBX.
Exactly, right?
That's interesting.
So the same way we've been developing applications, and that has grown the company. And that has been, I think, the exciting part about, growing the company is being able to see all these additional services grow.
That is amazing. Congratulations, Riyaz and your team. So we're coming to the end of this conversation with you, Riyaz. Thank you very much. A very cheeky question to ask you before we close out. So if Amazon walks in today and puts in a couple of $100 on the table for Angani, what would you say?
Couple hundred?
Yes, couple of hundred. $100 million. Couple of $100 million. Let me rephrase that. Couple of $100 million.
So I think, and that's the thing. We have had interest from a couple of companies.
Yes.
I think it's, obviously you're building something. Infrastructure is not something that, you can build
It's a
without
long-term view.
Yeah, it's a long-term view. It needs heavy pockets, right? So I think it's about aligning visions. If the vision is aligned, then building cloud for Africa, there's
You still
definitely
want to have that flexibility because some of the big companies may not have the patience and the flexibility to.
You see, the thing is, we know how to do it.
Yes.
Right? We know, what is needed. There's obviously more edge computing. There's obviously more countries. There's more capital that needs to be put in, right? So it's always, like we're not going to be able to do it by ourselves. We need to be able to, bring in capital to be able to grow it effectively, right? Yeah. But we know how to do it, right? And so that's why I say if we're aligned the right way,
we are open to conversations.
Then building the cloud for Africa, I think is a like you said, big audacious goal, right? And so it sort of needs that level of investment, and that's continuously what we strive and do. I mean, we have very efficient use of capital right now. I mean, that's how we've grown.
That is fantastic.
And the beauty of that also is growing not just the business kind of efficiently, where we're always profitable, but growing our team. That's the thing I'm most proud of. We've been able to grow a really good team. Our CTO right now joined as an intern.
Wow.
So
that's real growth internally. Yeah,
that's the kind of growth that I'm proud of that we've been able to achieve.
Riyaz, thank you so much. Viewers, thank you for your time listening in. Riyaz has really, in just about under an hour, given us an interesting view of where internet infrastructure has come from, not just in Kenya, across the region. And you've had this big, hairy, audacious goal to build Africa's cloud infrastructure. And for me, Riyaz, is just to tell you, you go, guy. You go. You go, man. Thank you, guys. Looking forward to continuously having this conversation. We now come to the end of episode 2. Season 2 of Ali Talks Tech. Asanteni sana.
Thanks, Ali.
Cheers. Yes.
Good to be here.
Asante sana. Cheers.